Emma Grede is a businesswoman, founder, and serial entrepreneur, known as one of America's richest self-made women by Forbes. She is the powerhouse behind some of this generation's biggest consumer brands. As the co-founder and CEO of Good American, founding partner of SKIMS, and chairwoman of the 15% Pledge, and recently joined the board of directors of the Obama Foundation, Emma has reshaped fashion and business with purpose and vision. Now, she's bringing her insight to the mic with Aspire with Emma Grede, a new podcast designed to inspire the next wave of entrepreneurs to turn ambition into action. Welcome, Emma Grede.
Oh, thank you, Shelley. It's so nice to speak to you today.
Yeah, I think it's just lovely what you're doing with the podcast. And, on the Goodness Factor, we like to shine the spotlight on good people doing good things. And you are definitely doing good things. I just would like to start by getting a little background on your road to entrepreneurship, because these are some really major things that you've accomplished at such a young age. How young were you when you feel like you caught the entrepreneur bug?
Well, I'd love to say that it was that purposeful, that I woke up with a great idea and I just had to do it. The honest truth was that I spent my life, working in corporate, and I'd had a job since, I was 12 years old. I, had paper rounds, and I worked in a delicatessen, and I worked in a bunch of stores, and I got my first real job in a fashion show production company when I was 18 years old. And by the time I was 24, I had got really to the point where I believed that I was really undervalued in that business. And yet at the end of the day, they didn't want to pay me more. And so I struck out on my own. And that's when I started my first agency. It was an entertainment marketing agency. We did brand partnerships with celebrities. And I built that company from, it being just myself into being, an agency that had multiple offices across multiple countries. And it ended up selling, which was amazing. I got my first exit and a little bit of money in my pocket. And so that was the first thing I did. But, I spent a long time going around ultimately finding things that I didn't want to do. I'm really honest, before I landed what it is that I do now. And it's been a very, very long journey to get to where I am. So as much as I feel like, we're obsessed with this idea of overnight success, it's a great, it's great storytelling, but it isn't the truth of my journey, and it isn't a great career plan. I've done all the jobs and all the hard things and worked my way to where I am now.
Well, it sounds like, though, that becoming an entrepreneur, it just came naturally to you, because you were like, okay, they didn't value you enough and they didn't want to pay you more, so I'll strike off on my own. I mean, it doesn't come that easy for everyone. It seems like it was really easy for you.
I think what it was is being in my early 20s, I had no responsibilities, right? There was no mortgage to be paid. There were no kids to look after. And so it was relatively easy at that point in my life to say, if I don't make enough money, I'll be okay. I'll find a sofa I can sleep on. I'll figure it out. And I do think that that's my mentality, because for a lot of people, they live with the idea of a business in their head. And what you have to do is get out of your own way. And I think the thing that I know and that I've learned about myself is that I'm fine with failure, and I've failed a lot of times, more times than I care to mention. But that's really what I've kind of built that muscle of what it takes to be super resilient. And so that's what I really try to focus on. It's not so much about things going well, it's just trying a lot of things, and I've tried a lot.
Yeah, and it seems like your business, as you were saying it went global right away. So many people, they're starting a business, it's like right there in their, their little town, and you went global.
It took 10 years for me to go global. That's the truth. I spent years and years and years pounding the pavements in London, going to every ad agency and media agency and PR agency to try to win whatever tiny little bit of business I could. But the honest truth is that I was very, very prepared for things to grow and very conscientious about what it was that I had going for me, which really at that point was only my reputation. You're only ever as good as the last job that you've done, as a consultant. That was my life for years. And so after about 6 years and the company started to grow steadily and slowly, I managed to open another office in New York, and I opened a little office in Paris. And then I opened an office in LA that was a total failure. So these journeys are not linear. They kind of go it's really difficult. But it's like I learned a lot, and I think that the thing is that we all fail, we all make mistakes, and it's really just about what are you taking from those moments, and how much of that can you attribute to like what you've done and the things and the places that you went wrong, and not ever look outwards and not ever blame.
So before we get into talking, really get into talking about Aspire, for those of us who may have business ideas in our head, what are some actual steps you would suggest us take to get out of our way and to get going with the business?
One thing is to start. People are always waiting for the right moment, to be qualified enough, to have the right financial situation. You have to start. You just have to go. And the beautiful thing about business is you don't need to get it right all right away. What you start with, your purpose, your reason for starting a company, that should remain the same, but everything else should transition on the way up, and it should change. And so what I say to most people is get out of your head and try something. Just do, just go, call that factory, make that phone call, try that thing, do whatever it is that you need to do to actually get yourself out the gates, because an idea in your head is never going anywhere, and that's where people live with most things. And the other thing is that, to be brutally honest, you have to, not have excuses, and you have to be willing to sacrifice, and that's the thing, right? You might not be able to do all the things that you're doing right now, you've decided that you're going to take a bet on yourself. And so I think being really realistic about what gives, what the trade-offs are, that's what's been very, very helpful to me, because none of us can have everything all the time.
And wouldn't you agree, Emma, that it takes confidence and belief in yourself, right? Because we can have that self-doubt, and talk ourselves out of it.
Shelley, but here's the thing. I think there's so much, especially for women, there's so much talk about mindset and manifestation. Yes, you need all of those things. You need to believe in yourself, and you need a lot of confidence. But you know what you really need? You need hard work. You need to do something. You need to get out of your own way. And so I think that it is important to speak to yourself well and to feel confident about what you're doing. But most important, it is to just do.
Yeah. So get boots on the ground. Just do it.
Moving.
Get it going. So let's talk about Aspire. What inspired you to start hosting your own podcast, Aspire, on the Odyssey app, actually?
Well, you know what? I'm so happy to have partnered with Odyssey to do this, I have to say, because I've spent my entire career building and scaling businesses. And what starts to happen is that people would come to me and say, hey, Emma, I want to start my own thing, or I've just bootstrapped a company and I'm wondering what to do next, or, I've been working this job for years and I've got to figure out how to make a move, how to change my position, be paid more. And so what I'm trying to do with this podcast is scale the idea of mentorship. How do you help as many people as possible to, transition from where they are now into something that they want to do? And so I, am really, really lucky because I've built the most unbelievable network of people that have helped me in my businesses that I know from the finance community, and I want to bring all of those people to the people, and I want them to tell you the truth, and I want us all to be able to share in the information and use that to actually live the life of our dreams and live our true purpose. And that's what this podcast is about.
I love that idea that this podcast serves as you mentoring us. I absolutely love that.
Honestly, and that's my whole point. And listen, let me tell you what I promise you. If you give me an hour of your time, I will give you something in return. I want people to have something tangible that they can take out of each episode, that they can say, oh, I never knew that. I never realized that. I've just learned something, and then they can go off and go and use it in their life. So this is about me giving something and you getting something out of it. And that transaction is really important to me.
And I love that, with your guests, you come out of the gate just killing it. Some of your guests, Jay Shetty, Michael Rubin, Gwyneth Paltrow, Carly Kloss, Melody Hobson. I mean, first of all, I don't want to ask you who was your favorite, but I would like to, I'm just going to throw their name out there again. And if you can tell me something from each guest, if something comes to mind that maybe you learned or something most helpful from their episode. Let's start with Jay Shetty. He always has such inspiring content and advice. What was the most important thing you feel? Well, what is the most important thing you feel Goodness Factor podcast listeners will learn when they listen to the Jay Shetty episode of Aspire with you?
What I love about Jay is that he spoke about, the element of purposefulness. And I feel like it's such an overused term in business right now. But, what Jay said is that people that are doing things with good intentions have to get as well organized as those doing things with not the same intentions.
Yes.
And, there is this idea that if you're in a purposeful business, that maybe you're not making a profit and maybe you're doing it for the love of, humanity. And that's not the case, because what Jay spoke about is the idea of purposefulness being an accelerator to the business, purposefulness being something that actually makes the business profitable and makes it, the thing that is going to be the thing that sets it apart. And so I love that framing of purposefulness, because I think that when any of us start and think about a business, at the end of the day, it has to be a business. It has to make a profit. It has to pay its people. And so, for me, putting those two things together and really explaining that was very helpful.
What about with Michael Rubin's episode?
Michael is and I don't think you'll mind me saying this, he's an animal. Michael does not mess around. And what I loved about Michael is how he spoke about all of his failures. He did not hold back, and he said, he's done so many things and he's come so close. But one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of the men that I've interviewed is they talk about how fun it is. Like Michael finds that it's fun. He loves winning, he loves losing, he loves the game. And I think sometimes, again, we can take these things too seriously. Like, he is having fun, he's living his best life. And that is a really important part of building a business, because it gets so tough and it gets so miserable and it really weighs you down that you've got to be loving it. You've got to be having fun.
Okay. What about Gwyneth? I'm really excited to hear about what Gwyneth Paltrow had to share on her episode.
Well, you know what? I don't know if this is so much what she shared, but in the course of the episode, what I understood is that Goop is 18 years old.
Yeah.
And that idea that not everything is like an overnight success. Not everything is accepted by the culture immediately. Gwyneth's done some pretty incredible things with that business, and she's had so many firsts. And I thought it was amazing to listen to someone who has built something slowly, steadily, again with purpose, and again with a lot of meaning, but it hasn't, it wasn't like something that just was like accepted immediately and was on fire immediately. She had to build and build and build and build. And I think that's the reality of the business and what I know to be true.
One of the things I love about Gwyneth and Goop is that when she first came out with it, like you said, 18 years ago, people were like, what is Gwyneth doing? Because we're used to, I don't know, Martha Stewart doing something like this or other people, but we're not used to Gwyneth doing, a lifestyle brand like this. And so people were kind of, I don't know, they were kind of picking on her about it. And then when she would release certain projects or products, and she just did not let that deter her. It was something she had passion for, and she stuck with it. And now it's hugely successfll.
Now it's hugely successful. Now we're all clamoring after those items.
What about Carly Kloss's episode?
This is about someone who does what she believes in. And I think that it takes a lot when you are, Carly's from a very, sort of regular family. And, when she started modeling and then got that Victoria's Secret contract and then subsequently walked away from it, that takes a lot. That takes a lot of conviction in who you are and what your beliefs are. But when she started to understand that what she was doing, the moves that she was making, had an impact on other people and what they saw in themselves, she kind of decided that she has a responsibility. And I think about that in how she looked at that Victoria's Secret contract, but also when you look at how this woman is a voice, not just a voice, but is out there putting her own money and raising unbelievable amounts of money for the right for us to all have abortions in this country. I just find that is, it's not easy. People talk a lot and they don't do a lot. And Carly is someone who puts her money where her mouth is.
And finally, Melody Hobson's episode, really interested in that one.
Listen, she is one of my idols. And, Melody is someone during the episode, I mentioned how I met Melody and I just bashed the door down. I kept calling and emailing until she took my call. Like we were not friends. She's someone I was like, I just want to know you. I just want to be friends. But what she spoke about that really touched me was this idea of intensity and how much you need to want something and how hard you need to work at it. And, she spoke about mentors as being, the mentors that you've never met, like all of her mentors coming from books. And she would sit in the library at 8, 9, 10 years old and treat the words that she was taking in as people were speaking to her and mentoring her. And I was like, well, how amazing is that? Because we can all do that.
Yeah. And one of the things I love, watching you do these episodes is that you come at it not only with, mentoring us with the information, but also you've got a great sense of humor. And, I just love your interaction with whoever you're interviewing. It's a fun, it's a fun watch.
Thank you. No, I'm first of all, I'm so glad you're watching it because so many people are, I feel like it's just so interesting when we get to get under the skin of people, and you get to really understand and see who they are. And, I have a strong belief that I don't need to agree with everything from everyone. I think there's so much that we can learn. And I think that right now in the culture that we live in, we're only served up more and more and more of the information that we already support and we already believe in. And so I'm really interested in this platform as a place where you can actually learn from someone that you might not meet in every day, right? It might not be somebody that has the same belief system as you. You might not agree on every aspect, but I think that we all have things that we can learn from each other. And so I think as a space and a place to do that, this is an amazing way that I can make that a reality. I don't want to hear more people that agree with me.
Well, listen, to your point, all of these guests that you've had on the podcast so far are so different in everything, in every way, but it's all very informative for us. So, I can't wait to see and listen to more episodes. How are you choosing who you want to be on the podcast?
It's just all me. Before I started the podcast, I had a list of 108 people.
Oh.
And I'm making my way down my list.
Wow.
I'm just calling people up and being like, hey, do you want to come on?
And of course they're saying yes.
We hope so.
Well, in closing, what do you want listeners to take from the podcast?
What I want is for people to be inspired for themselves. And, I have this very strong belief in my life that everything starts with yourself. It all starts with the stories that you tell yourself and the things that you allow yourself to do. And, I have this wonderful friend, Diane von Furstenberg, and she says, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the relationship you have with yourself. And so I'm of the mindset that we should constantly feed ourselves, that we should constantly be in learning mode, that we should constantly be thinking about how we can be better. And this is one way to do that. And so I just want people to come into this space and go, I left just a little bit better. I left learning something. I left with my mind opened. I left with an idea that I could do something that I didn't think I could do before. That would be winning to me.
So we always end every episode with the goodness factor, with the good word. And the very first good word that I shared on the podcast was a really amazing quote my mom shared with me, and that kindness is difficult to give away because it keeps coming back. And
I love that.
Me too. Beautiful. My mom shared. It's special to me because my mom shared it, and it's really so beautiful and it's so true. So I'm wondering if you could leave us with a good word, maybe something you live by, or maybe an inspiring quote that has helped you in over the years.
I absolutely love quotes. I post a quote almost every day because I find it so uplifting and so inspiring. I think one of the ones that I really love and I'm kind of fixated on right now is actually a quote because we had Mark Cuban. I interviewed Mark Cuban, which is he's just one of my favorite people. I love him so much. But he has this great quote and he says, if you're not positive energy, you're negative energy. And it's one of those things that again comes down to like how are you behaving and what are you putting out there and what is your responsibility for what you're getting back. And I feel like if we all decided every day, it's like I'm gonna be positive energy, because if I'm not, I'm the exact opposite of that. Like that is to me so empowering, because again, we know what we get back when we give out positive constantly. And so I love that because I just think it is like they are words to live by.
And that is definitely a good word. Thank you for sharing it and for taking the time to stop by the Goodness Factor podcast. I love it, and I can't wait to continue to follow along on the podcast. Again, it's Aspire with Emma Grede and Odyssey podcast. Thank you for stopping by the Goodness Factor, Emma.
Thank you, Shelley. It's so lovely to meet you. I appreciate you.
Likewise. Have a great one.
Take care, my dear.
Bye-bye.
You.